The snow fell in thick sheets, making it almost impossible for Keisha Thompson to see more than a few feet ahead of her car. The windshield wipers worked overtime, fighting a losing battle against the heavy snowfall. She gripped the steering wheel tightly, her knuckles almost white from the pressure. After a 12-hour double shift at Memorial Hospital, all she wanted was to get home to her son Tyler. Just 5 more miles, Keisha whispered to herself, squinting through the blizzard. The radio had warned everyone to stay indoors, but when you're a nurse and single mom, you don't always have that choice. The country road stretched before her, a winding path through dense woods that led to her small house on the edge of town. She'd driven this route hundreds of times, but tonight, the familiar landmarks were hidden behind a wall of white. A flash of red caught her eye. Brake lights, half buried in a snowdrift just off the road. Keisha slowed her car, peering through the passenger window. Was someone actually stuck out here? Her first thought was to keep going. Tyler was waiting, probably hungry, and she was bone-tired from her shift. But something made her stop. Maybe it was her nursing instinct, or maybe it was the memory of being stranded herself once with a young child, waiting for help that seemed like it would never come. Keisha pulled over carefully, making sure her car wouldn't get stuck too. She zipped up her heavy coat, pulled on her gloves, and stepped into the howling wind. The cold hit her face like a slap, stealing her breath for a moment. Snow immediately clung to her braids and eyelashes as she trudged toward the stranded car. As she got closer, she could see it was a dark blue sedan, its front end pushed into a deep snowbank. The car was running. She could see exhaust coming from the tailpipe, but it wasn't going anywhere anytime soon. Keisha knocked on the driver's window. A man's face appeared, surprise and relief washing over his features as he rolled down the window. "Oh, thank goodness," he said, his voice shaky. "We've been stuck for almost 2 hours. My phone has no service out here. Are you hurt?" Keisha asked, immediately scanning him for signs of injury. "No, we're okay, just cold and scared. The car heater's still working, but I don't know how much gas we have left." He glanced to the back seat, and Keisha followed his gaze to see a small girl bundled up in a pink coat, clutching a worn stuffed rabbit. "Hi there," Keisha said softly to the child, who looked at her with wide, frightened eyes. "My name's Keisha. What's yours?" "Lily," the little girl whispered. Hugging her rabbit tighter, the man introduced himself as David. "We were trying to get to my sister's house in Pine Ridge. I thought I knew a shortcut, but then the storm got worse, and I missed a turn somewhere." Keisha nodded, making a quick decision. "Listen, you can't stay out here. Emergency services are swamped with accidents all over the county. My house is just a few miles down this road. You and Lily can come warm up, get something to eat, and figure things out from there." David hesitated. "I don't want to impose." "It's not an imposition, it's common sense," Keisha said firmly. "This storm isn't letting up anytime soon, and it's not safe to stay here." After a moment, David nodded. "Thank you." "Really?" Getting their few belongings from the car was a struggle against the wind, but soon David and Lily were settled in Keisha's car, the little girl's teeth still chattering from the cold. "My son Tyler is at home," Keisha explained as she carefully navigated the snowy road. "He's 10. I had Mrs. Wilson from next door check on him after school, but she had to get home before the storm hit. You live close by?" David asked, rubbing his hands together for warmth. "About 4 miles down this road. It's nothing fancy, but it's warm and dry." Keisha smiled briefly at Lily in the rearview mirror. "And I think we might have some hot chocolate." The little girl's face brightened slightly at that, though she still looked scared. The drive was tense and slow, with Keisha focusing all her attention on keeping the car on the road. David sat quietly beside her, occasionally checking on Lily, who had fallen into an exhausted sleep in the back seat. "She must be worn out," Keisha said softly. "How old is she?" 7, David replied, his voice filled with love and worry. "She's been so brave today. We were supposed to be at my sister's hours ago for her birthday dinner." Lily was really looking forward to seeing her cousins. As they rounded a bend, Keisha's modest 2-story house came into view, a warm light glowing from the kitchen window. She felt a wave of relief wash over her. "Home." "Tyler must have turned the porch light on," she said as she pulled into the driveway, her tires crunching through the fresh snow. "He's a good kid, responsible." David gently woke Lily as Keisha gathered her nursing bag and purse. "We're going to stay with Keisha for a little while, sweetie," he explained, "until the storm passes and we can get our car out." The wind had picked up even more, making the short walk to the front door a challenge. Lily stumbled in the deep snow, and without thinking, Keisha scooped her up. The girl was lighter than she expected and clung to her neck as they hurried toward the house. The front door flew open before they reached it, and Tyler stood there in his favorite blue sweatshirt, eyes wide with curiosity. "Mom, you're super late," he exclaimed, then noticed the strangers. "Who are they?" "These are our guests for tonight, Tyler," Keisha explained as they all shuffled inside, stamping snow from their boots. "This is David and his daughter Lily. Their car got stuck in the snow." The warmth of the house enveloped them, and Keisha felt some of the tension leave her shoulders. The living room was small but cozy, with a worn couch and mismatched armchairs arranged around a coffee table covered in Tyler's homework and colored pencils. "Sorry about the mess," she said, suddenly aware of how the house must look to strangers. "Are you kidding? This is heaven right now," David said sincerely, helping Lily out of her snow-crusted coat. Tyler was already introducing himself to Lily, asking about her rabbit, and Keisha felt a surge of pride at her son's natural kindness. "You two get settled in the living room," Keisha said, hanging up her coat. "I'll make something hot to drink." In the kitchen, as she filled the kettle and found mugs, Keisha could hear Tyler's excited voice showing Lily his collection of rocks on the windowsill. She smiled to herself. Her son had been asking for a friend to come over for weeks, though this wasn't exactly what he'd had in mind. David appeared in the kitchen doorway. "Can I help with anything?" "You can grab those cookies from the jar," she said, nodding toward the counter. "Nothing fancy, just some chocolate chip ones I made on my day off." "You made them?" David looked impressed. "I can barely manage boxed mac and cheese without burning it." Keisha laughed, surprised at how normal this felt, having this stranger in her kitchen. "Baking relaxes me. It's how I unwind after hospital shifts." "You're a nurse?" David asked, setting the cookies on a plate. 10 years now. I work in the ER at Memorial." She poured hot water into mugs, adding cocoa powder and a splash of milk. "What about you?" "I'm an architect," he said. "Mostly residential projects. I have my own small firm in the city." They carried the drinks and cookies to the living room, where Tyler was showing Lily how to build a fort with couch cushions. The kids paused their construction to accept hot chocolate, and for a moment, the room was quiet except for the sound of the wind howling outside. "The storm's getting worse," Keisha noted, glancing out the window at the whiteout conditions. David nodded, looking worried again. "I should try calling my sister, let her know we're okay." "Phone lines are down," Tyler piped up. "I tried calling Grandma earlier, but nothing's working." "The internet's out too." Keisha wasn't surprised. Their rural location often lost service during bad weather. "The landline might work," she offered, pointing to the old corded phone on the wall. While David tried the phone, Keisha noticed Lily shivering despite the warmth of the house. She disappeared upstairs and returned with a soft blanket and a pair of Tyler's old sweatpants and a t-shirt. "These might be a bit big," she told Lily, "but they're warm and dry. You can change in the bathroom, first door on the right." "No luck," David said, hanging up the phone. "Lines must be down everywhere." "You're welcome to stay until things clear up," Keisha assured him. "The spare room upstairs isn't much, but the bed's comfortable." David looked at her with genuine gratitude. "I don't know how to thank you. If you hadn't stopped," Keisha waved away his thanks. "Anyone would have done the same." But as she watched Tyler teaching Lily how to make shadow puppets in the lamplight, their laughter filling the room, she knew that wasn't true. Some people would have driven past, focused only on getting home. Some would have called for help and continued on their way. Outside, the blizzard raged on, wrapping the small house in a cocoon of white. But inside, warmth spread through rooms that had felt too quiet for too long. Keisha sipped her hot chocolate, watching as David joined the children's game, his worried face relaxing into a smile. Sometimes the worst weather brings unexpected blessings, she thought. And sometimes taking a chance on kindness leads exactly where you need to go. Morning came with a stillness that seemed strange after the howling winds of the night. Keisha woke early from habit, despite having fallen asleep on the living room couch just a few hours earlier. She blinked at the bright whiteness coming through the windows. The world outside was transformed, buried under at least 2 feet of snow. She stretched, feeling the stiffness in her back from the old couch. The events of the previous night came back to her, finding David and Lily stranded in the blizzard, bringing them home. She glanced around the living room, seeing the empty mugs and the pillow fort that the kids had eventually fallen asleep in. Tyler had insisted that Lily take his bed, but the little girl had been too nervous in the strange house, so they'd camped out together downstairs instead. The smell of coffee drifted from the kitchen, surprising her. She wrapped her cardigan tighter around herself and padded toward the kitchen, where she found David standing at the counter, pouring water from her old kettle into the French press. "Hope you don't mind," he said quietly when he noticed her. "Figured you could use some coffee after letting us crash your home last night." "Mind? You're speaking my love language," Keisha said with a smile, accepting the steaming mug he offered. "Thanks. Where'd you find the coffee beans?" "Top shelf behind the flour," David said. "I did some hunting while trying not to wake anyone. You organize your kitchen almost exactly like my mom used to." Keisha took a sip, surprised at how good it tasted. "You make better coffee than I do in my own kitchen." David leaned against the counter. "Small talent, but it comes in handy." He nodded toward the window. "Looks like we might be here another day if that's okay. I checked the road. It hasn't been plowed yet. And the news on your radio says emergency services are still dealing with accidents from last night." "Of course it's okay," Keisha said, moving to look out the window. The snow created a pristine blanket over everything, beautiful but isolating. Her little house felt like an island in a sea of white. "I'm not scheduled back at work until tomorrow night, so we're good." A small sound made them both turn. Lily stood in the doorway, her hair a mess of tangles, still wearing Tyler's two big clothes from last night. "Good morning, sweetheart," David said, kneeling down to her level. "Did you sleep okay in the fort?" The little girl nodded, rubbing her eyes. "Tyler snores a little," she whispered. Keisha laughed. "Yes, he does. Just like his dad did." The words slipped out before she could stop them, a rare reference to Tyler's father who had left when their son was just 2. "I'm hungry," Lily announced, breaking the moment. "Well, we can fix that," Keisha said, opening her refrigerator to survey the options. "How do pancakes sound? I think we've got a snow day feast in our future." Lily's face lit up. "Can I help?" "I'm a good mixer." "Absolutely," Keisha said, pulling out eggs and milk. "And maybe you can wake up Tyler too. He never wants to miss pancakes." Soon the kitchen was filled with activity and the sweet smell of pancake batter cooking. Tyler shuffled in, hair standing up in all directions, immediately arguing with Lily about whose turn it was to stir the batter. David jumped in as official taste tester, making exaggerated faces that had both kids giggling. Keisha watched them all, feeling something warm spread through her chest that had nothing to do with the hot coffee. It had been a long time since her kitchen felt this full of life. After breakfast, with the kids occupied by a board game Tyler had pulled from the closet, Keisha and David washed dishes side by side. "So," David said, drying a plate, "you mentioned Tyler's dad last night." Keisha's hand stilled in the soapy water for just a moment. "Not much to tell. He decided fatherhood wasn't for him when Tyler was 2. Sent birthday cards for a couple years, then nothing." David nodded, not pushing. "Being a single parent isn't easy." "No," she agreed, handing him another plate. "But we manage. Tyler's a good kid, makes it easier." She glanced at him. "What about Lily's mom?" "If you don't mind me asking." David's face clouded slightly. "Car accident 3 years ago. Drunk driver." "I'm sorry," Keisha said simply, understanding in her voice. "Some days are harder than others," David replied. "Lily was only 4, so her memories are fading. Sometimes that feels worse, you know? The idea that she might not remember her mom." They worked in companionable silence for a while, the children's laughter providing a soundtrack from the living room. "You're doing a good job with her," Keisha said finally. "She's a sweet kid." "Thanks," David said. "Some days I have no idea what I'm doing, especially with the girl stuff, hair, clothes, all that." Keisha smiled. "Well, if you ever need hair advice, I've got plenty. Though I'm not sure I'm qualified to give fashion tips." "Are you kidding? Those penguin print scrubs you were wearing last night were the height of fashion," David teased. Keisha splashed him with soapy water, surprised at her own playfulness. "Hey now, show some respect for the penguin scrubs. They're a hit with the pediatric patients." By mid-afternoon, they'd settled into a comfortable rhythm. David made a second attempt to call his sister and finally got through, assuring her they were safe and would visit once the roads cleared. Keisha found some old art supplies, and the kitchen table became command central for a massive drawing project that Lily directed with surprising authority. "No, Tyler, the sun needs to be more orange, the little girl instructed, passing him a crayon. And we need more snow people. She's got quite the artistic vision, Keisha commented to David as they watched from the living room. Gets it from her mom, David said with a sad smile. Jessica was an art teacher. Our house is still full of her paintings. I can't bring myself to take them down. You shouldn't, Keisha said firmly. They're part of your family story. Later, after a lunch of grilled cheese sandwiches and tomato soup, Keisha was folding laundry when a small noise from upstairs caught her attention. She found Lily in the hallway looking at the framed photos that lined the wall. Is that Tyler when he was little? Lily asked, pointing to a photo of a toddler with a wide grin. Yep, that's him on his second birthday, Keisha confirmed, setting down her laundry basket. And is that his daddy? Lily pointed to another photo, this one of a younger Keisha with a tall man, both smiling at the camera. Keisha hesitated. Yes, that's Robert, Tyler's dad. Where is he now? He lives far away, Keisha said carefully. Lily considered this. My mommy lives far away too. Daddy says she lives in heaven. Keisha knelt down to Lily's level. Your dad told me about your mom. I bet she was wonderful. Lily nodded solemnly. She used to sing songs when I couldn't sleep. Daddy tries, but he can't sing good. Keisha laughed softly. Well, that's something we have in common. Tyler banned me from singing lullabies when he was 5. Could you sing to me tonight? Lily asked suddenly. Just to see if you're really that bad? The question caught Keisha off guard, but she found herself nodding. Sure, I can give it a try. But don't say I didn't warn you. The afternoon passed quietly as the snow continued to fall, though not as heavily as the night before. David found some tools in Keisha's garage and fixed a loose cabinet door that had been bothering her for months. Keisha showed Lily how to braid her hair, demonstrating on Tyler first, much to his mock horror and secret enjoyment. By evening, they were all gathered in the living room again, this time with a fire crackling in the small fireplace. Tyler had dug out an old DVD player, and they were watching an animated movie with bowls of popcorn balanced on their laps. Keisha found herself watching David more than the movie, noticing the gentle way he tucked a blanket around Lily, how his laugh came easily now, less burdened than the night before. She caught him looking at her too once or twice, and felt an unexpected flutter in her chest that she quickly dismissed. When the movie ended and the kids were getting sleepy, Lily remembered Keisha's promise. Will you sing now? She asked, eyes already heavy with sleep. David raised an eyebrow. Sing? Have I missed something? Apparently I agreed to audition as a lullaby singer, Keisha explained with a mock sigh, though I warned her about my limited talents. Oh, this I have to hear, David said, settling back on the couch. Me too, Tyler added with a grin. It's been years since Mom tried to sing. Last time our neighbor's dog started howling. Thanks for the vote of confidence, Keisha said, rolling her eyes. But as Lily curled up next to her on the couch, looking up expectantly, she found herself humming softly, then singing an old song her grandmother used to sing to her. Her voice wasn't perfect, a bit raspy and unsure at first, but it filled the room with a gentle warmth. Lily's eyes grew heavier with each verse, and by the second chorus she was fast asleep, her head resting against Keisha's arm. Keisha looked up to find David watching her, something unreadable in his expression. That was beautiful, he said quietly. Liar, she whispered back with a smile, but she felt a glow of pleasure at his words. Outside, the snow had finally stopped, stars beginning to peek through breaks in the clouds. But inside, none of them were in any hurry for the roads to clear. For tonight, at least, they had found unexpected shelter from more than just the storm. The sound of engines rumbling outside woke them all early the next morning. Keisha parted the living room curtains to see a snowplow making its way down their street, carving a path through the thick blanket of white. Behind it, a salt truck followed, workers spreading grit across the freshly cleared road. Looks like the world is coming back to life, she said, turning to find David standing behind her, 2 steaming coffee mugs in hand. Guess that means we'll be heading out soon, he said, passing her a mug. There was something like regret in his voice. Keisha took a sip, trying to ignore the strange sinking feeling in her stomach. You must be eager to get to your sister's place. They're probably worried sick. We talked yesterday, remember? They know we're safe. David glanced toward the kids who were still asleep in their rebuilt fort. To be honest, this has been nice despite the circumstances, Keisha nodded. It has. They stood in comfortable silence. watching as the neighborhood slowly emerged from beneath the snow. Mrs. Wilson from next door was already outside, sweeping her front steps with determined energy despite her 70-plus years. I should probably help her clear her walkway before I head to work tonight, Keisha murmured, more to herself than to David. We can help with that, David offered immediately. It's the least we can do after you've been so kind. By mid-morning, the kids were up and fed, and David was on the phone with a local towing service. They can pull my car out this afternoon, he told Keisha after hanging up. Apparently we're low priority since we're not blocking traffic. No rush, Keisha said, surprising herself with how much she meant it. You're welcome to stay until then, but reality was creeping back in. Keisha had to prepare for her night shift, and David mentioned needing to check on some work projects that had been on hold during the storm. The easy bubble they'd existed in for the past day and a half was thinning. Can I get your phone number? David asked suddenly as they cleaned up from lunch. In case we, want to check in. Or if Tyler wants to hang out with Lily sometime. Keisha smiled, writing her number on a scrap of paper. Sure, we're only about 40 minutes apart when there's not a blizzard. 40 minutes isn't so far, David said, tucking the paper carefully into his wallet. The tow truck arrived just after 2 o'clock. The driver, a burly man named Pete, greeted Keisha like an old friend. Your mama would have been out there shoveling the whole street by now, he teased. Probably, Keisha agreed with a laugh. Explaining to David, my mom was famous in this town for her snow-clearing determination. Pete here used to plow our street when I was a kid. Small towns, David said with a smile. Must be nice having those kinds of connections. Sometimes, Keisha admitted. Other times it means everyone knows your business before you do. It took nearly an hour to free David's car from its snowbank. The vehicle was undamaged but would need a good wash to remove all the road salt and grit. While Pete worked, the kids built one last snowman in Keisha's front yard, making it so large they needed David's help to place the head. You should name him, Lily told Tyler solemnly, as if bestowing a great honor. Tyler thought for a moment. How about Blizzard Bob? Lily giggled, nodding her approval. Perfect. We can visit him someday to make sure he's okay. The casual mention of a future visit hung in the air between the adults, who exchanged glances over the children's heads. Finally, it was time to go. David's car was free, warmed up, and ready for the drive. Lily hugged Tyler fiercely, then surprised Keisha by throwing her arms around her waist. Thank you for letting me stay in your fort, she said, her voice muffled against Keisha's sweater. And for singing, even if you think you're not good. Keisha knelt down, returning the hug. You come back anytime you want to rebuild that fort, okay? Lily nodded, her eyes bright with unshed tears. Promise? Promise. David loaded their bags into the car, then turned to Keisha. For a moment he seemed unsure what to say. I don't know how to thank you, he finally managed. You might have saved our lives out there. Don't be dramatic, Keisha said, but she was touched. Anyone would have done the same. No, David said firmly. They wouldn't, trust me on that. He hesitated, then gave her a quick hug. I'll call you, he said quietly before pulling away. Keisha and Tyler stood in the driveway, waving until David's car disappeared around the bend in the road. The sudden silence felt heavy. They were nice, Tyler said, kicking at a clump of snow. Yeah, they were. Keisha agreed, ruffling her son's hair. Come on, let's get inside. I've got to get ready for work. The house felt emptier somehow, despite being exactly as it had been before the storm. Keisha moved through her pre-work routine on autopilot, trying to shake the strange melancholy that had settled over her. It was silly, really. They'd only known David and Lily for 2 days. 3 nights later, Keisha was at work when her phone buzzed with a text message. She checked it during her break, surprised to see David's name on the screen. Lily made me promise to send this, the message read, followed by a photo of a drawing. It showed 4 stick figures standing beside a lopsided house and an enormous snowman. Blizzard Bob says hi, the text continued. How are you guys doing? Keisha smiled, typing back quickly. We're good. Tyler asked about Lily at breakfast yesterday. Blizzard Bob is hanging in there, though he's looking a bit thinner these days. Their text conversations became a regular thing after that. Just little updates at first. Lily lost a tooth, Tyler won a science prize at school. David got a new project designing a community center. Keisha sent a photo of the leak in her bathroom ceiling getting worse after another rainstorm. joking that she might need to start collecting buckets. 2 weeks after the blizzard, David called instead of texting. "So, about that leak," he said after they'd exchanged greetings. "I know a really good contractor who owes me a favor. If you're okay with it, I'd like to send him over to take a look." "David, you don't have to do that," Keisha protested. "I want to," he said simply. "Please let me help." "It's what friends do." The word friends settled something in Keisha's chest. "Okay," she agreed. As friends. The contractor, a cheerful man named Ray, arrived the next day. What should have been a simple ceiling repair revealed a bigger problem with the roof, one that would have caused major damage if left unchecked. "Your friend David already approved the work," Ray told her when she worried about the cost. "Said to tell you it's non-negotiable." That evening, she called David. "You can't just fix my roof," she said without preamble. "Already happening," David replied, and she could hear the smile in his voice. "Think of it as payback for saving us from becoming human popsicles." "David." "Keisha," he countered in the same tone. "Look, I happen to be in a position to help and you happen to need it. That's all this is." She sighed, knowing she couldn't really afford to turn down the help. "Fine. But I'm cooking you and Lily dinner when it's done. A proper thank you meal." "Deal," David said promptly. "How's Friday?" And that was how, exactly 1 month after the blizzard, David and Lily found themselves back at Keisha's house. This time with clear skies and dry roads. The kids disappeared into Tyler's room almost immediately, leaving the adults in the kitchen as Keisha put the finishing touches on a pot of her grandmother's famous jambalaya. "Something smells amazing," David said, leaning against the counter in almost the same spot he'd occupied that first morning after the storm. "Family recipe," Keisha explained, stirring the pot. "My grandma would haunt me if I didn't do it justice. Based on that smell, I think you're safe from ghostly cooking critics." David stepped closer, peering into the pot.
"Can I help with anything?"
Keisha glanced up at him, suddenly aware of how close they were standing. "You've helped enough, don't you think? My roof no longer leaks, even in the heaviest rain." "That was nothing," David said softly. "It wasn't nothing to me," Keisha replied, holding his gaze. "That roof repair was way more than I could have handled on my own right now." Something shifted in the air between them, a moment of understanding that went deeper than words. From upstairs came the sound of children's laughter. "Bright and carefree. You know," David said finally. "I think we got caught in exactly the right blizzard." Keisha smiled, feeling the last of her walls beginning to crumble. "Yeah," she agreed. "I think maybe we did." Spring arrived with bursts of color across Keisha's small front yard. The crocuses she'd planted years ago with Tyler pushed through the soil, their purple and yellow blooms a cheerful announcement that winter was finally releasing tis grip. The massive snowman the children had built, Blizzard Bob, had melted away weeks ago, leaving only a carrot and a few pebbles as evidence he'd ever existed. What hadn't melted away was the connection between the two families. What had started as texts and occasional phone calls had evolved into regular weekend visits. Sometimes David and Lily would drive to Keisha's house. Other times Keisha and Tyler would make the trip to the city where David lived, in a modern apartment with large windows and minimalist furniture that somehow still felt welcoming. Today was Tyler's school music showcase, and Keisha was rushing around the house getting ready. Her scrubs were tossed in the laundry basket, replaced by a flowery blue dress she rarely had occasion to wear. She was attempting to fix her hair when her phone rang. Please don't cancel," she muttered, seeing David's name on the screen. Tyler would be crushed if Lily and David didn't make it to his performance. "Hey," she answered, trying to sound casual. "We're about 20 minutes away," David said without preamble. Lily insisted on bringing flowers for the star musician, so we stopped at that little shop just outside town. Relief washed over Keisha. "You didn't have to do that. Try telling that to Lily. She's got the whole thing planned, flowers, standing ovation, the works. I think she's more excited than Tyler." Keisha laughed, the tension in her shoulders easing. "Well, that makes one of you. Tyler's been pacing the house all morning. I've never seen him this nervous." "He'll be great," David assured her. "We've heard him practice. Kid's got talent." 40 minutes later, they were all seated in the crowded elementary school auditorium. Tyler's class was performing last, and he'd been tight-lipped about his exact role in the showcase. Keisha sat between David and Lily, who was bouncing in her seat with anticipation. When Tyler's class finally filed onto the risers, Keisha spotted her son immediately. Unlike the other kids who carried recorders or small percussion instruments, Tyler stepped up to a keyboard set up at the side of the stage. "He's playing piano?" David whispered, surprised. "I thought he was in the recorder group." Keisha was equally shocked. So did I. The music teacher stepped forward, introducing the final performance, a medley of songs arranged for the class with special solos from several students. When she announced Tyler as their piano accompanist, Keisha's hand flew to her mouth. "When did he learn to play piano?" Lily asked loudly, earning a few chuckles from nearby parents. The performance began, and Tyler's fingers moved across the keys with surprising confidence. He wasn't perfect, there were a few missed notes, and once he had to stop and restart a section. But the pride on his face when he successfully navigated a tricky part made Keisha's heart swell. "Did you know he could do that?" David asked as they applauded between songs. Keisha shook her head, blinking back tears. "He must have been practicing at school. We don't even have a piano." When the showcase ended, they found Tyler in the crowded hallway surrounded by his classmates. His face lit up when he spotted them, and he rushed over, nearly bowling Lily over as she thrust a bouquet of yellow daisies at him. "You were amazing," she exclaimed. "How come you never told us you could play like that?" Tyler grinned, embarrassed but pleased by the attention. "Wanted it to be a surprise. Mrs. Diaz let me practice during lunch breaks." Keisha hugged him tight. "I'm so proud of you, baby. But why the big secret?" Tyler's smile faltered slightly. "I thought maybe if I got really good we could get a keyboard someday. Not a big one," he added quickly. "Just something to practice on." The simple request delivered so hesitantly made Keisha's stomach knot. Music lessons. Instruments. These were extras she couldn't easily fit into their tight budget, especially with the hours at the hospital being cut recently. "We'll figure something out," she promised, pushing aside her worry. Today was for celebration. Later, as they all sat around a pizza at Tyler's favorite restaurant, David pulled up a video he'd taken of the performance on his phone. "Future concert pianist right here," he joked, showing Tyler the recording. "For real?" Tyler asked, eyes wide. "You think I could do that?" "You can do anything you set your mind to," Keisha said automatically, then caught David's eye. He nodded slightly as if confirming her words. "Actually," David said, setting down his pizza, "I might know someone who could help. One of my clients teaches piano at the community center in my neighborhood. She's always looking for dedicated students." Tyler perked up. "Really?" "David," Keisha started, a warning in her voice. This was becoming a pattern. David stepping in to solve problems, offering help she couldn't easily accept. "Just an introduction," David clarified, reading her expression. "Nothing more than that." But 3 weeks later, it was more than just an introduction. Tyler had been invited to join a special music program, one that typically had a long waiting list and significant fees. When Keisha questioned how he'd gotten in so quickly, Tyler shrugged. "Ms. Chen said I have untapped potential or something. And she gave me a scholarship." The word scholarship set off alarm bells. That evening, after Tyler was in bed, Keisha called David. "Did you pay for Tyler's music lessons?" she asked without greeting. The brief pause before David answered told her everything. "Not exactly," he finally said. "David, okay, I may have made a donation to their scholarship fund, but it wasn't just for Tyler. They're using it for several kids who couldn't otherwise afford lessons." Keisha closed her eyes, fighting between gratitude and frustration. "You can't keep doing this." "Doing what?" "Helping. Fixing things. Paying for things. It's too much." The line went quiet for a moment. "Is it really about the money, Keisha? Or is it something else?" The question caught her off guard. "What do you mean?" "I mean," David said carefully, "that sometimes I wonder if you're afraid to let anyone help you, even when it would make your life easier, even when it would make Tyler happy." The truth of his words stung. "It's not that simple." "It could be," David replied softly, "if you let it." The conversation ended unresolved, a slight tension hanging between them for the first time since they'd met. The next day, however, David texted as if nothing had happened, sending a funny photo of Lily attempting to teach herself recorder based on what she'd seen at Tyler's showcase. The familiar routine of their friendship resumed, but something had shifted beneath the surface. A month later, Keisha was working a particularly difficult shift in the ER when her supervisor called her into the office. The hospital was implementing more budget cuts and her department was being restructured. She would keep her job, but her hours would be reduced by nearly half. "I'm sorry, Keisha," her supervisor said genuinely. "I fought for your position. You're one of our best." Keisha nodded numbly, calculating figures in her head. Half the hours meant half the pay, and they were already stretching every dollar. The roof repair had saved them from a disaster, but there were other expenses looming. Tyler's braces that the dentist had been recommending, the car that was making troubling noises, the rising cost of groceries. She made it through the rest of her shift on autopilot, her mind racing with possible solutions. A second job, perhaps, though that would mean even less time with Tyler. Selling the house was an option, but the market was down, and it had been her parents' home before they passed. Every alternative seemed to come with a heavy cost. When she finally got home, exhausted and worried, she found Tyler sitting at the kitchen table doing homework. He looked up when she entered, his face breaking into a smile that immediately faded when he saw her expression. "What's wrong, Mom?" She tried to smile, to shield him from her concerns as she'd always done. "Just a long day, baby. How was your piano lesson?" Tyler studied her face for a moment, too perceptive for his age. "You can tell me if something's wrong, you know. I'm not a little kid anymore." The simple statement, delivered with such earnest maturity, brought unexpected tears to her eyes. She sat down beside him, taking his hand. "The hospital is cutting back my hours. We'll need to be extra careful with money for a while." "Does that mean I have to stop piano lessons?" he asked quietly. "No," she said firmly, though she wasn't entirely sure how she would keep that promise. "We'll figure it out." Later that night, after Tyler was asleep, Keisha sat at the kitchen table with bills spread out before her, trying to make the numbers work. Her phone lit up with a text from David. "You've been quiet today. Everything okay?" She stared at the message, torn between pride and the growing realization that sometimes being strong meant knowing when to ask for help. After a long moment, she typed back, "Actually, no. Could really use a friend right now." His response came immediately. "I'll be there in 30 minutes. True to his word, David arrived at Keisha's house exactly 30 minutes after her text. When she opened the door, the concern on his face made her throat tighten. "Come in," she said quietly, conscious of Tyler sleeping upstairs. "Sorry to drag you out so late." "You didn't drag me anywhere," David replied, following her to the kitchen where evidence of her financial worries was still spread across the table. He took in the scene. The calculator, the stack of bills, the notepad covered in crossed-out numbers, and his expression softened further. "Want to tell me what's going on?" he asked, pulling out a chair. Keisha sat across from him, suddenly feeling exposed. It was one thing to hint at money troubles, another entirely to lay them bare. But something about David's steady presence made her continue. "The hospital cut my hours in half," she said, the words coming easier than she expected. "Budget issues, they say. I'm looking for a second job, but even then I'm not sure how we'll manage everything." David nodded, taking in the information without judgment. "What does that mean for you and Tyler day to day?" "Honestly, I'm not sure yet. The mortgage is fixed, thankfully, but there's the car payment, utilities, groceries. Tyler's growing so fast he needs new clothes every few months, and the dentist says he needs braces soon." She sighed, running a hand through her hair. "We'll get by. We always do." "I know you will," David said. "But maybe you don't have to do it all alone anymore." Keisha looked up sharply. "I didn't ask you over for money, David. I know that." He reached across the table, his hand covering hers. "But I've been thinking about something for a while now, and maybe this is the right time to bring it up." She waited, suddenly nervous about what would come next. "My firm is expanding," David explained. "We just got a contract to design a series of affordable housing developments about 15 minutes from here. I'll be overseeing the project personally, which means I'll be in this area 4 or 5 days a week for at least the next 2 years." "That's great," Keisha said, genuinely happy for him despite her own troubles. "A big opportunity, it is. But the commute from the city would be brutal, especially with Lily starting school." He paused, seeming to gather his thoughts. "I've been looking at houses in this area. Nothing fancy, just somewhere Lily and I could put down some roots." Something fluttered in Keisha's chest. Hope or fear, she couldn't quite tell. "You're moving here?" "I'm thinking about it. But there's more." David took a deep breath. "The development includes plans for a community health center. They're looking for experienced nurses to join the planning committee to make sure it actually meets community needs. It's a paid position with flexible hours. Keisha stared at him. Are you offering me a job? I'm telling you about an opportunity, David corrected gently. One that would use your skills and experience, pay better than the hospital, and let you set your own hours around Tyler's schedule. You'd be perfect for it. David, I don't know anything about planning healthcare facilities, but you know everything about what nurses and patients need in those facilities. That's invaluable. He squeezed her hand. Just say you'll think about it. That's all I'm asking. Later, after David had left with a promise to email her the job details, Keisha stood at her kitchen window, looking out at the quiet street. The weight that had been crushing her earlier had lifted somewhat, replaced by a cautious optimism she hardly dared trust. The next morning, she woke to find Tyler already up, sitting on the edge of her bed with an unusually serious expression. I heard you and Mr. David talking last night, he admitted. Not on purpose. I got up for water. Keisha sighed, patting the space beside her. Come here. What did you hear? That we might not have enough money, Tyler said, settling next to her, and that Mr. David might move near us. He looked at her with those solemn eyes that sometimes seemed too wise for his years. I think that would be good. He makes you smile more. The simple observation caught her off guard. Does he? Tyler nodded. Yeah, and Lily's like the sister I never had. Even when she's annoying. Keisha laughed, pulling him close. When did you get so grown up? I'm 10, Mom, double digits. Practically a teenager. Heaven help me, she groaned dramatically, but her heart was full as she held her son, amazed at his resilience, his easy acceptance of change. 3 weeks later, Keisha found herself walking into a bright office building for an interview with the development company's planning committee. Despite her initial hesitation, David had convinced her to at least talk to them, see what the position entailed. 2 hours later, she walked out with a job offer that exceeded her expectations. Better pay, flexible hours, and the chance to help shape a healthcare facility that would serve her own community. For the first time in months, maybe years, she felt a sense of professional purpose beyond the day-to-day demands of her ER shifts. That evening, David and Lily came over for dinner to hear about the interview. While the kids played in the backyard, Keisha told David about the offer. I'm taking it, she said, a new confidence in her voice. It feels right, David. And not just because of the money. The smile that spread across his face warmed her from the inside out. I knew you'd be perfect for it. There's something else, she added, suddenly nervous. I've been thinking about what you said about putting down roots in this area. David set down his glass, giving her his full attention. And? The house next to Mrs. Wilson is going up for sale. Her daughter told me yesterday. It's not listed yet, but it will be soon. She took a deep breath. It's a nice house. Good yard for Lily. Walking distance to the elementary school. Something like hope flashed in David's eyes. Are you suggesting I should look at it? I'm suggesting, Keisha said carefully, that having you and Lily nearby would make Tyler very happy. Just Tyler? David asked softly. Their eyes met, and the unspoken understanding that had been growing between them for months seemed to crystallize in that moment. Not just Tyler, she admitted. 6 months later, on a crisp fall afternoon, Keisha stood in her backyard watching as David and Tyler assembled a tire swing on the old oak tree that straddled both properties. The fence between the yards had come down weeks ago, creating one large shared space where both families moved freely between houses. Lily sat beside Keisha on the porch steps, carefully painting designs on small stones she'd collected. Do you think Dad will ever finish that swing? They've been working forever, Keisha laughed. Your dad is being thorough. He wants to make sure it's safe. He's always extra careful since the blizzard, Lily observed. He says it taught him how quickly things can change. From inside Keisha's house came the sound of the oven timer. That's the cookies, she said, standing. Want to help me get them out? As they headed inside, Keisha glanced back at David and Tyler, now taking a break from their project, sitting side by side on the grass, deep in conversation. Her heart swelled at the sight. That evening, after both kids were asleep, Lily in the bedroom that was now officially hers at Keisha's house, Tyler in his room with the keyboard David had found at a music shop, the adults sat on the porch swing David had built last month. I got a call from the community center today, David said, his arm comfortably around Keisha's shoulders. They want to expand the music program. Asked if I'd help design a proper performance space. That's wonderful, Keisha said, leaning into his warmth. Tyler will be thrilled. They also want to offer free lessons to more kids. Asked if you'd consider joining the board. Keisha looked up at him. Me? Why? Because you're the one who understood how much music could mean to a kid, even when you couldn't afford lessons yourself. They need that perspective. She nodded slowly. I'd like that. They sat in comfortable silence, watching as the first stars appeared in the darkening sky. Nearly a year had passed since that snowy night when Keisha had spotted a stranded car on her way home from work. Neither of them could have imagined then where that simple act of kindness would lead. You know what I was thinking about today? David asked. How sometimes the worst moments can lead to the best changes. His fingers gently intertwined with hers. That blizzard should have been a disaster. Instead, it led us here. Keisha smiled, remembering her fear as she'd driven through the snow that night. Her hesitation before stopping to help. Sometimes, she said softly, you have to go through the storm to find your way home.